take into account replayability, and that is a quality that makes it more of a perfect game. What do you guys feel about that?
I think that that's definitely an aspect. Talking about Bungie again, I think that I just think there's a handful of developers that get it. I think they get it right out of the gate. They realize that once you put out a game, it's not done yet. You need to support it for several years after the fact, and they find ways to make it fun. So when Destiny came out in 2004, it's not the same game in 2015. It's not the same game in 2016. And I think that because they carefully craft the way that the online experience works, it makes it easy for you to keep jumping back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think replayability definitely plays a factor in that they find a way to take that chunk of time and stretch it out and make it fun for a longer period of time, which they've talked about in the past before. You could see vid docs where they talk about that.
I would say depending on the genre of game, replayability definitely factors in. Cause I know for me, because as soon as you said replayability, maybe think of a game that I would say it's also kind of perfect for what it is, but it's not necessarily a game that you're going to go back and play over and over and over again. Would be Journey. Yeah. I've played it a couple times, but it's not something that it begs you to go back and play it.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, same thing with Shadow of the Colossus, which I talked about last week. You're not going to really go back and play Shadow of the Colossus 3 or 4 times. You're going to play it once and you get that experience.
You can play it once and realize it's a perfect game.
Yeah, and you realize this is everything that I've wanted for up until that point, and this is a perfect game. So
going back to Journey, though, don't you think that's perfect for what it is, that game?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, it's... I know we're keep talking about games that you haven't played yet. But yeah, I mean, it's, 2 to 5 hours, depending on how much you kind of explore and figure out.
Hardcore war shooter, you know the type, right?
Yeah.
I only play first-person shooters.
But for such a short game, to have that much of an impact on the way people kind of look at games, I think you have to say that that's close to perfect, if not perfect for what it is.
Perfect for what it is. You mentioned that. I mean, Journey in its own. I mean, some people consider it a AAA title.
It's somewhere.
Not.
It's such an indie title.
I think
it is.
I think indie title. Yeah, some people consider it AAA. I don't. But
I think people consider it AAA because of the status.
Well, Sony is known as the major publisher of it. I think Sony. I think you're bringing up Journey. I think indie games as a whole has its own separate realm because there's so much ingenuity now.
Undertale.
I know. Undertale is the one of the best turn-based RPGs that have come out in God knows how long.
In a game that came out of nowhere, too.
Out of nowhere by one dude probably and a small team. I know you love Fez.
Oh, yes.
Which, I mean, we're not going to talk about Phil Fish because he's a bad taste in some people's mouths. But he created something that's considered a if you play indie games, you play Braid. You play Super Meat Boy. You play Fez.
Yeah, I would argue that Braid was for a while the poster.
Oh yeah.
I still consider it probably it is the poster child of what an indie game is supposed to be.
I agree.
Did for indie games with what Mario Brothers did for.
The great thing about indie games is they're not so worried about who's going to play. It's they are able to have that creativity when they're making that game, and having that creativity allows for them to make these games that are almost perfect for what they are.
But not only damn near perfect, they are what people want. And that right there shines a light, in my opinion, on video game culture as a whole.
Well, they're definitely able to take more risks, too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like you said, they can kind of do what they want. They're able to take more risks. There's not publishers breathing down their back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you have to sell this much.
Budgets to meet and stuff like that. So there's not deadlines, really. There's deadlines, but it's not on the same level.
The indie developers are kind of like a lot of the really niche JRPG developers, how they are, where you're going to make your money to break even, but you're not reaching for Call of Duty numbers. Yeah. You have your audience, who you're making it for, so you can make the game you want because
and if
you
it
want
should
to play
be
it.
more successful than that, then that ends up winning for everybody. So.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's I definitely agree with that. You get companies like NISA, NIS America, and they always consistently make the same
Xseed
what they want.
And
Xseed. I would even say From Software with Dark Souls. That hasn't that formula was never, in my opinion, as a gigantic Dark Souls fan, for the most part, wasn't tainted. The second one's a little iffy. But from Demon Souls to now, I'm hell yeah. This is my series. I've never once been I'm not feeling these changes.
Are we considering those still indie?
I would say
I don't know.
Because I mean, like
I wouldn't say Dark.
I would say this past
I would say
year,
Demon Souls probably indie.
Demon Souls, yeah, because people
now it's a major thing for sure.
Yeah, Dark Souls. I don't know where it blew up or why it blew up. Like at what point in the past year or two, but it just like out of nowhere, it was an overnight thing.
I think Dark. Again, YouTube is kind of with horror too. Yeah. YouTube helped blow this up because you have these really high-profile guys like PewDiePie, Cinnamon Toast Ken.
Game
Grumps,
Bloodborne,
and Dark Souls 3. Yeah. These high-profile guys playing these games and kind of spreading the word about them. Because I know for me, I bought Bloodborne because I watched Game Grumps play it. I am terrible at the game, and I probably will never pick it up again because
I'll teach you.
I don't need that much stress in my life.
Break a controller while you're at it.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
that'll happen. I've broken 3 controllers.
Oh no,
3.
Yep.
I've stopped. That's
not worth it.
It's not. There's $60. Hell no.
Yeah.
Sometimes
yeah.
you find
And if you buy a limited edition controller, it's like $20.
Yeah, I have one black controller. I have 4 controllers. I have one black one. I have the silver one that came with my system because I got the Arkham Knight one. Makes me happy. I have the 20th anniversary one. Then I have the Uncharted one.
I have the Uncharted one. That's the only one that I have. I'm like, this controller's my baby. Like I cradle it whenever I play.
I bought 4 controllers hoping to God that Duck game would come out this year, and it still hasn't.
You were talking about, games like, are like, is it indie? Like, people would ask, okay, what about Outlast because of the big following that it has now? But
I think games can start as indie games.
Absolutely.
And become AAA.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Same thing with film. No different.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to reel it back in too and talk about like qualities that we think
for perfect.
Yeah, for perfect. And I've been thinking about this for a few minutes now, and well, actually since we started the topic. But I think with me, I always say with me. I just noticed that.
No, I mean, who cares?
It's a
it is with you.
topic.
It is, because not everyone's gonna agree.
I can't think of a game that I consider like to have like a bunch of qualities that make it perfect, and there's nothing that's coming to me, which is bizarre because I'm like even with Halo, which is like my baby, like I have criticisms of it. Even with Last of Us, which is my baby, I have criticisms of it.
It's your adopted child.
Yeah, it's my adopted child, and even with like Uncharted 4 this year, like
it's perfect.
I love
quality.
it.
That's why we're talking about qualities in it. It doesn't have all the qualities of a perfect game.
But I'm trying to think like, is there a game that has like several of them that I consider to be?
It's really hard. I mean, because I think if you do that, I think you have to go back to older games.
Yeah.
For one.
Because I mean, I've heard people say Mario 100%, Mrs. Pac-Man 100%. People that would say
Link to the Past.
Link to the Past, Tetris, for example. 100%.
I honestly, Link to the Past. I would say Link to the Past and Wind Waker if we're talking Zelda.
But see, with me, I would see. I'm gonna get a ton of flack for this, but with like older school Zelda games, I'm like, character development isn't necessarily there. I'm like, if I must criticize.
But does it need it?
Yeah.
See, because this is where my whole concept comes into, with what it's presenting, as long as it's hitting the marks, could it still be considered perfect, even though it's missing certain elements? Because we're talking about Overwatch.
Yeah.
There's the only character development isn't even part of the game.
Yeah.
It's from the supplementary videos.
Which is weird because I'm normally of that mindset as well, but I'm like I have like kind of like this chart and I have like all these different tiers. I'm like, okay, does it hit that? And it doesn't necessarily need to hit all of those marks in order to be considered a perfect game by most. I'm like, if we have this invisible chart that has like all these qualities that a game must have to be perfect, and I'm trying to think of like in my head which one hits most.
There isn't. There hasn't. I don't think there's been a truly perfect game yet.
I mean, to say it's over like completely perfect, that's a major step.
I don't think there really will be though,
because there's still debate on what the greatest game of all time is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but there's interesting enough. There's less debate about what the greatest film of all time is. I mean, everyone has like their 5, and for the most part, every other person is going to have at least a few of those in their top 5.
I think it's still kind of the same with games though too, because you always see like Mario 3 is in there.
Mega Man.
Mega Man 2. Yeah. You have Link to the Past.
There's a Final Fantasy in there somewhere.
I think it's
7.
No, not 7.
It's
6.
6 is 6.
I see 8 being thrown around the line.
I would
like
say 6.
The hipsters that don't want to like 7, so they just go one.
They just go to 8.
I don't like 7.
As good as 7.
Yeah, nowhere near as good as 7. I'm sorry, but
I haven't really played it, but I'll say Final Fantasy 6 is the perfect RPG.
Oh yeah, I'll agree with you 100% on that. I love Final Fantasy. It's not my favorite Final Fantasy. It's not even like in my top 3. But as a whole, I played through all of Final Fantasy 6.
Yeah.
from start to finish, it hit every mark, every single mark, and I was blown away by playing something that's archaic by today's standards, and it holds up. It holds up among the best RPGs today. But yeah.